What's something you've done that deserved credit but no one gave it to you? I wrote a Perl script that saved my company $10 million when the electric company dug up our data lines. We were able to continue production for 17 hours and keep the Jeep plant running with no interruption. It wasn't even my job to write that script. I just saw the potential emergency situation and decided to do something about it. Got my normal 2% salary increase that year. Thanks Excel. About 10 years ago, I applied for a job as a recycling coordinator. Part of the application process was that they left me alone with a laptop to answer the question, how would you improve compliance? So I laid out this idea I had about a PR campaign. I didn't get the job. But about 6 months later they rolled out a campaign that was exactly what I had proposed. I'm still waiting to serve cold revenge to the asshole director of that department. When I was just out of high school, my dad was having some alcohol issues. I lived with my boyfriend, was going to college full time, and worked full time. I'd drive the hour to my dad's house to stock his fridge once a week. I paid his utilities for him for almost 2 years. I endured drunken 2 AM phone calls during this time. I decided to take a semester off, to get ahead on money, and didn't go back. After about 2 years of this, my dad got a DUI and quit drinking. Flash forward 10 years. My little brother and sister are 10 and 12 years younger than me, and are just beginning college. Our dad pays their tuition, their apartment rent, visits them to take them out to eat, and sends them cash every week. And jokes with me that maybe one of them will get their degree and do something with their lives. It was absolutely my choice to do everything that I did, but some acknowledgement of my help would be great. Designed my school's logo in an after-school logo designing class back in 7th grade. They just used it without ever telling me. Logo designing class, more like give us free intellectual property class. I'll do you one worse. I'm from the carpet capital of the world, and in 7th grade art class, we would do carpet design competitions, and the carpet mills would take student designs and turn them into products that they sold. Didn't give any money to the kids whose designs were chosen and then sold for profit, and it was a mandatory part of art class. I believe I was the first to remove the border on the Commodore 64, shared the code freely with my friends, only to discover that my friend would post it as his own in a code competition in a magazine back in the early 80s. That's my first taste of treason and humanity. I wrote a paper for our senior year. My partner did nothing, except screwing things up and writing like an infant. We won the award for the best paper at graduation. He was the only one mentioned, and got the award because he got 0.5 more points on his oral exam. Edit, the award was a €300 shopping card. I am rather salty. Helped design significant portions of a multi-million-dollar innovation, just to have my name scrubbed in a fit of office politics. Oof. That's the worst. I designed a spreadsheet for inventory tracking to take my multi-million-dollar department, which is part of a multi-billion-dollar company, from pencil and paper into the digital era in 2009. They decided to implement it as part of a bigger program the next year. The guy they put in charge of it left my name out entirely, but had a big thank you to a coworker who color-coded the stock types on my spreadsheet. I'm still bitter whenever I see it. In high school I convinced a kid not to kill himself, and reported it later to a teacher. He was sent to hospital for a couple of weeks. The teacher said to me, "You are not going to get a hero's recognition for this, but remember that you probably helped save a life." I looked this guy up on Facebook 20 years later. He's still alive. I discovered the first recorded evidence of a blacksmith's forge in a major, literally world famous, Roman site. I was uncredited as I was working as part of an unpaid archaeological student excavation team. I had a professor do something similar, though not with quite as cool of a subject, or as important. They published a paper based on my work and refused to mention me, either as a contributor, or their assistant, since I was not a grad student, just taking the class as an elective in my minor. I was 18 and on holiday with my girlfriend in Italy. We'd just arrived in Rome, having flown in and caught a train to Termini station. We stop in a park not far from the station, to take a break and have some food before finding our hostel. We're both quite tired, so my girlfriend starts napping in the sun, and I'm lounging out too, occasionally shutting my eyes. After enjoying the sun for 20 minutes or so, I open my eyes to see a man walking away from us, but quite close by, then think to myself that that's quite strange, because I hadn't heard him at all. I look around and immediately realize my girlfriend's handbag is gone. I jump up and run after the man, who I now see is wearing a big coat and is clearly in a hurry to leave. I shout after him, and manage to catch up before he gets out of the park, and grab his arm, spin him around and wrestle the handbag from underneath his coat. He runs off, and not particularly wanting to start a whole thing, I decide to leave it and return to my girlfriend with her handbag containing her passport, mobile phone and holiday money. Amazingly, she had slept through the whole event, so I woke her up, told her what had just happened, and that I had essentially just saved the entire holiday. Her response? Nothing. Not a thanks, not even to this day. About 8 years on and several girlfriends later, this still annoys me. TLDR, chased a thief to save my girlfriend's passport, mobile and holiday money from being stolen in Rome. Never thanked me. I used to work at an exotic car dealership startup. I was just a detailer at the time. We had a meeting to discuss ways to improve cash flow cause we weren't selling enough cars. I had the idea of using the empty front parking lot of about 30 spaces to sell cheaper cars, like Mercedes/BMW/Audi, etc. They shot that idea straight out of the sky. I was eventually fired for not caring about the business. 1 year later, and guess what they are doing? In fact, they're not even selling exotics anymore. Just used cars. I helped raise and take care of my niece and nephew for many years. I decided that I couldn't stay in my mother's religion anymore, and left it when I was 19. They were no longer allowed to speak or have anything to do with me after that. For so many years I changed their diapers, fed them, bathed them, cried with them, rocked them to sleep, cleaned up so much vomit, drove them to and from school, took them to work with me on Bring Your Kid to Work Day, watched cartoons, and it was just all taken away in the blink of an eye. I saw them a few years back at my dad's house. He's not in my mother's religion. They hadn't seen me since they were about 6 or 7 years old, and they were both getting ready to graduate high school. They barely remembered who I was, and didn't say 2 words to me hardly. It breaks my heart to this day to know that they'll never realize how much I love them. I saved a girl's life once. We were at a concert, and there was a giant pond thing to swim in. There was a floating plank thing in the middle that everyone would play King of the Hill on. Anyway, this girl got stuck under it and was drowning, and I was the only one to notice, so I pulled her out. I wonder how she's doing from time to time. Edit, I may have read the question wrong, because I never expected any recognition from this. I just did what was right, and it made me feel really good. A lot of people on my course in college left all their coursework to the last minute for the whole year. I'm talking 1 week before the deadline. Most people still had the first assignment to finish, so I stayed from 8 AM to 10 PM every day that last week, including on my birthday, to help them out. Some of them even got distinctions when they would have been disqualified without me, and yet the next year rolls around, and not one credited me for helping them, and most got openly hostile if I suggested that I did help them. There was a fire in my apartment building. The old lady who lived in the apartment below mine had fallen asleep smoking, and woke up to her apartment on fire. She got out, but was too shocked to notify anyone else. So, I was the one who noticed it, got my girlfriend at the time out of the place, then ran through knocking on doors and yelling in windows. Everyone got out safe. I sort of voluntarily avoided credit for 2 reasons. First, my girlfriend at the time was recently divorced, but separated for a good amount of time, and she was spending the night, which her parents didn't approve of, being a conservative Catholic family. Second, my local news had seemingly been on a string of interviews where not a single person being interviewed didn't come off as being a yokel/hell person. It was mostly reason 1, but reason 2 was a benefit. The apartment complex thanked me by moving the old lady back into the same apartment, despite her refusing to quit smoking. My lease renewal was coming up, so I noped out then. Also, the only people we told were my parents, and my wonderful mom's reaction was basically, "Oh, bad idea, would never have done something that heroic." So that's cool, should have seen that coming. My apartment building caught fire back when I was in college. I can't sleep through anything, so I literally didn't wake up until firefighters had broken in and pulled my naked butt out of bed, despite fire alarms going off and lots of pounding on the door. When I got outside, my neighbors, whom I had never talked to, saw me and said, "Thank God you're okay. We knocked on your door and yelled for you. We know you usually leave about an hour from now, and we saw your car was still here." I had no idea they paid attention to that stuff or cared. I was in such shock about the fire that I really didn't say anything or thank them, and we never talked about it again, but I do still really appreciate what they did. Even just knowing that the families in my building kept an eye on the young single girl living alone meant a lot to me. I actually donated my bone marrow to a totally random woman, and from what I'm told, directly saved her life. I asked the registry people if I could call and check on her, or send a card or something, but apparently she's refused to have any contact with the donor, me. I don't ever bring it up in real life, because if you donate and talk about it, I think it somewhat negates the meaning of the act itself. But, yeah, nobody actually knows I did that, and the one woman who does, for some reason, refuses to have contact with me. Back in 2009 I used to work in social media development, and I came up with a simple idea. What if we had a special slot for a new photo we ask people to take, with them having the site name and their username written on a piece of paper? We can give them a little verified green check mark if they do it. I think a few sites had done verification back then, but it was mostly pertaining to a verified email address. We had a Philippine admin team just checking photos on the back end, so they were all manually approved. So yeah, in my most modest fantasies, I like to think that I helped that check mark become the standard you see now. Even though I don't seek credit for it, I once declined a full 2-year scholarship to study abroad, because I was needed at home to care for an ailing family member. At the time, it broke my heart, because the graduate program offered was exactly what I had dreamed of doing. But, it would have been selfish of me to accept the offer when someone I loved dearly needed me at a critical time. No regrets. I did the right thing. Being able to provide that special care and being loved for it in return was the best credit. I was riding my bicycle when a guy opened his car door right in front of me without looking. My wheel bent. I flew over the handlebars, only for my upper right arm to slam into the door, stopping me in my flight, and finally landed on my side in the middle of the street. I was bleeding, knew right away I had damage to my hand, and my bike wheel was busted. Once I got myself up, I accepted that this was just an accident. Yes, an avoidable one, but a simple accident nonetheless. I never once yelled at the guy. I didn't complain that he should have looked before opening the door. I asked for insurance info, and when he denied it, we both decided that a call to the cops was best. When everyone saw the bruising, their immediate questions were, "Are you suing?" and "Did you curse him out?" So far I am not suing. I will make sure my medical is taken care of. Best case scenario, I can get a new wheel for my bike too, but I'm in no way looking to break this guy financially. I wish more people would recognize that I'm not being vindictive, even though a race I really wanted to do is now an impossibility. Notified my neighbors that their house was on fire, helped them exit. Went back in for their 2 dogs, much flames at this point. Walked across the street to tell my wife I was fine. Sat down. Walked back over to make sure the neighbors were going to be fine. Police and fire on the scene by this point. Cops told me to leave or be arrested, and wouldn't let me get checked out for smoke inhalation.